up, people? Welcome to 1,000 Words. My name is Radu. I'm a street photographer from Romania. This is my little corner of YouTube. And today we're talking about the ethics, the legality, and the morality of street photography. Today we're also having a sweaty old bottle of Pilsner Urquell, the best non-craft beer I've ever had. Really bitter, really tasty, only mildly alcoholic. Very suitable for a summer afternoon like this one. So yeah, street photography is creepy. A few caveats first, and also a bit of housekeeping. I want to ask you to join me on my Discord server, loosely based around the theme of my channel, but more so than anything, I want to create there a community of like-minded people, and we already have about 25 members, out of which most of them are handpicked by myself, very good quality people, so join us there and help us build a community. That out of the way, a few caveats before we start talking about our subject today. While I will briefly talk about the legality side of things, do keep in mind and take it with the large grain of salt that legislation is different and particular to each and every country. So this is not meant to be any sort of legal advice, far from it. I'm just going to speak about it from my point of view, from the point of view of Romanian legislation. But I think there are some general conclusions that can be drawn out of talking about the legality side of things. But more so than anything, I want to talk about the morality and the ethics of it. A few of my experiences shooting street photography for what now? In one way or another, a bit over 10 years, because I started taking pictures of people in public transport with my phone around 2011. But only about around 2016 was when I decided I would pursue this endeavor with a bit more of a serious and more dedicated manner and approach. So I want to share a few of my experiences, some things I've noticed, some little tips and tricks for getting away with it and getting around some fair and justified objections people might have. That out of the way, I want to admit from the very get-go that I'm well aware that street photography is creepy in the way that is perhaps the single... Yeah, I can't think of any other genre of photography where you take pictures of people without their knowing and consent. So from that point of view, it's kind of creepy. You just sneak up on people, walk up to people and take their shot without their consent and without their knowing it. So yeah, that makes it a little bit creepy. However, that is not to say it's illegal, that is not to say it's immoral, and that is also not to say that it's unethical. Let's get the legality side out of the way first, and I'm going to read you snippets from our civil code. And again, take it with a grain of salt. This is particular to Romania, and your own legislation might very well be very different, because I know that some countries are more lenient, like America or Britain. Anything you can see on the street you can photograph there. It is much the same here in Romania, but I've heard of countries like Germany or Hungary where street photography is really frowned upon, and people, they are really trying to get away with it by shooting a lot of silhouettes and a lot of really small people in their frame, or people with their backs turned to your camera, as in not to offend or just not have any recognizable features or faces. That out of the way, allow me to read to you and also translate in real time, so please excuse any cringiness that might ensue, because yeah, I don't script my videos, and this time, perhaps more than any other time, this is going to be kind of like a stream of consciousness type video, so excuse me if it's going to be all over the place. Here we go, about the legality of things. In principle, taking a photograph of a person or utilizing said image, including by sharing it across social media, is forbidden in the absence of that person's consent, and in the case of minors, in the absence of the consent of their legal tutors or parents. However, the right to one's image is not an absolute right, and photographing and utilizing an image of a person is allowed even when lacking said consent, then when this is done in good faith and in the expression of other fundamental rights, like, for instance, the right to free speech. We could just as well stop here, because this basically says it all. While a person has the right to their own image, this is not an absolute right, and you as a photographer are fully within your rights to take somebody else's picture, as long as this is done in good faith, even without their consent. And actually, although I had planned to read quite a few more paragraphs, I think we'll just leave it at here, because it just further on goes to say basically the same thing. And I'll just use my own words to say what the law says here. Basically, with just a handful of exceptions, you are allowed to take a picture of a person, even a recognizable picture of a person in public, even a portrait, if it's done in good faith, if it doesn't hurt or harm the human dignity or the right to their image in any way, and if you're not using said image to, let's say, promote a product. Let's say, for instance, you take a picture of a very beautiful woman on the street, and you go ahead and launch a line of perfumes, and you use said image and said picture on the label of your perfume. That's basically self-evidently wrong, because you're making money using somebody else's image. But other than these few aforementioned exceptions, the Romanian legislation not only does not forbid, it specifically permits the photographing of people in public space, even when lacking their consent. So that kind of puts an end to it. However, from my experience, and I have the law here, because I will tell you a short story where I think it was the single most negative experience in years, many years of shooting street photography, and it was involving cops. But before we get there, I want to tell you a few things, little tricks I use to get away with shooting street photography and not upset anybody. Because at the end of the day, even if I am fully within my rights to practice this art form, I try never to upset people. I don't think any picture is worth ruining my day or somebody else's day. So I usually try to do this as elegantly and as nicely as I can, with a few caveats, and I'll get to that. First up, so we leave the legality side of things alone. While I do have the law here on my phone ready to be shown to anybody that objects, because oftentimes when people object to me taking their pictures, they say it's not legal. They say I have to have their consent and it's illegal to photograph them in public. And it's there and then when I'm basically always ready to pull up the law and show them, because they're citing the law on me. So if I have the law on my side, I'm very well going to use it. However, I've noticed that not once, not ever, has this gone in my favor. While they cite the law when they object, suddenly the law is no longer relevant when I show it to them and say that it's in my favor. Then suddenly they have other arguments. It's no longer illegal, it's just that it's not nice. So what I do when people object, I just try to downplay it, and I just try to, and usually their biggest objection or concern is about what I'm going to do with the picture afterwards. A lot of people still think or people shooting street photography are from publications or newspapers or TV stations, and they usually ask where they're going to end up. When I tell them that I'm just an amateur photographer, that I'm doing this as a hobby, out of pleasure, that I like taking pictures on the streets, it's usually where 99% of the situations instantly diffuse, instantly become unproblematic, and oftentimes we just part ways with smiles because our people are instantly diffused. So this is something I do. Another thing that I do is I try to be a little sneaky about it, and I have two main strategies. Let's imagine this is my camera. Actually, hell, let's use the camera. I have here the Sony A7R III and the Konica 50mm f1.4, which is very soon going to be reviewed here on the channel. Yes, again. So the way I do it is I raise the camera to my eye, because while I sometimes shoot from the hip when it serves my composition, I never do it as a way to camouflage the fact that I'm taking pictures, because I'm fully aware I'm doing nothing wrong, nothing illegal, so there's no need to faff around and hide the fact that I'm doing pictures. Actually, I think that further adds to the creepiness. Sneaking around, being all kind of creepy and that, is just not something I like to do, so I make no qualms about it. I raise the camera to my eye and I take my picture, and then I pretend like I'm looking over their shoulder or behind them. I pretend that it's something that's behind them that I was trying to photograph in the first place. And more often than not, people will even look behind themselves and try and see what I was photographing. So that's to show that it's working. And people usually just don't really care. Most of the times they don't care. Sometimes they even like me taking their pictures. Just a couple of minutes ago, a lady asked for a picture. Oftentimes they will enjoy or even ask for pictures, but sometimes they will object. So as to avoid any sort of confrontation, I avoid their eyesight, I avoid making eye contact, and I just look through them, like staring through them like they were made of glass, as if I don't even see them, and actually I'm just photographing something way behind. Or, and this is working on the fact that people don't know how focal lengths work, even if I have a 50, I will just look around and maybe look at the architecture of a building behind them and pretend like I'm actually more interested in the building behind than in their person. So they don't know that the 50mm only gathers this much and actually the whole building will never fit in the frame. They don't know that. People are simply going to not even care. That said, if I'm close enough to a person, or these little ninja tricks I mentioned before simply don't work, and or I don't remember to do this, or it feels kind of awkward, I simply just take the picture, and I'd rather say sorry. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. I will basically never ask for an image, and if said situation calls for it, I will say sorry. I will usually say I didn't mean to upset you when I get objections, and usually people just find this pleasant and oftentimes say, oh, you didn't upset me, it's fine, I just wanted to see what you were doing, I just wanted to know what you were on about. So just try and be nice. On the subject of being nice, I'm drawing a red line in the sand where they are no longer nice to me, because while I try not to upset them, I will not tolerate being, let's say, upset, because I know I'm fully in my right to do this. So if they come at me entirely aggressive and unpolitely, and this has happened once or twice, even asking me to delete images, I will oftentimes simply refuse and just walk away. Never once was I at risk of being punched. This is also to say that Romania, and certainly Arad, is a small town, and the people here are generally kind of nice. We're not living in London. I'm not fearing any knife crime. I'm not in New York. Down these parts of the world, people are still generally kind of nice to each other. So, never once was I in any real harm. Far from it. Not in the slightest. However, there were once or twice a few occasions where people have raised their voices at me or even screamed at me and asked for me to delete the pictures. Sometimes I do, and generally when they ask nice. Or I remember a certain situation years ago when I was with my then girlfriend, now wife, and this gypsy fella really got mad at me taking a picture, but he was like 30 meters across the road, so still he made a point out of crossing the road, jaywalking, coming over to me, very mad, asking me to delete the image. If I had been alone, I probably would not have deleted the image, but I was with my then girlfriend, and I just wanted it to be over there and then. I didn't want to escalate anything, so I just quickly proceeded to delete the image. But generally, if I'm asked nice, I will delete. If I'm not asked nice, I will just walk away and just walk away. I will not be trampled upon. I have my own dignity, and I will not be anybody's bitch. That said, on the subject of bad experiences, I need to say that all these years of shooting street photography, and I have shot a lot of other places, not only Arad, mostly Arad, but I have shot in Sibiu, Alba Iulia, Sighișoara, Timișoara, in Cruceni, which is a small village, kind of doesn't even count. But hey, what I'm trying to say here is that I've had extremely few negative interactions with people. I remember a really old gentleman that called me a communist when I was shooting in public transport. Ironically enough, he was the old fellow, like 70 plus, and I was kind of like 30, mid-30s. But hey, yeah, what you gonna do? I just shrugged it away and didn't even engage with him. But the single most negative experience was when I was with my wife in our honeymoon. Tourists in Sibiu, in the biggest square in town. It's even called the Grand Square. And I was taking pictures, and yeah, sure enough, I was taking a picture of cops, but I was about 10 or 15 meters away. They were just small-ish subjects in my image, but I was not all up in their faces, taking gros plan images of them. I think I was really being completely inoffensive. Couple that with the fact that I was basically holding hands with my wife, obviously tourists, both with cameras, and these cops walked up to us really aggressively, started harassing us, started filming us themselves and saying like, I'm not allowed, I'm not permitted. I think there were 3 or 4 guys. A few of them were even off duty, I think. And I stood my ground and I said, it's not anything they have any right to object to. I'm a tourist, I'm in my honeymoon, and I'm taking pictures, and I'm in public, and I'm not doing anything wrong. So they walked up to me so fast that in all actuality, I didn't even manage to get a picture. So there was no issue of deleting anything, because they walked up to me so fast, like instantly triggered, that I didn't even manage to get any picture. But yeah, I stood my ground and I kind of argued with them back and forth a little, only to walk away. A few of them walked away before I did. But hey, it just ruined our evening. Sure, we fixed it up promptly with a couple of good beers afterwards, but it left a really sour taste in my mouth about the whole trip. So I think we're clear. Street photography is perfectly within the law. There's nothing immoral. There's nothing unethical about it. There's not going to be any reasonable expectation of privacy when you're out in the public. So sure, we as photographers should be concerned about basic human dignity. Everything and anything we do should be done in such a way as not to harm a person's right to their dignity and their image. That said, there is another aspect of this endeavor that I want to mention. The fact that we're kind of like historians in a way. I can think of a food market that was recently demolished, a food market that was kind of dear to my heart. I loved going there, maybe not so much as to buy groceries, although I did this. But more so than anything, I used to have lovely meat there and beers and do a lot of photography. And now it's just a grand open space. There's no trace of a food market. There's just a square, a big old granite covered empty space. And I'm a bit nostalgic about that. But I have pictures. I have pictures with that and people in that food market. I have pictures in my book. I have pictures on my hard drive. I have pictures online. And it's often the case that we, as street photographers, are historians of our own communities. We document the mundane. We document daily life. We document things most other people don't even notice. I think it's not very pretentious to say that we're actually doing a great service to our communities by making sure a lot of these places and people are not forgotten with the passing of time. It's not a small thing, and we're doing this for free out of passion, and we're doing this as often as we can, sometimes daily. It's not something to be neglected. I think we should strive to remember the fact that we're being historians. And yeah, I know I'm getting repetitive, but I love this word. I'm a historian. a historian that loves beer. Yeah. In closing, I am also working on a video where, because this is my own opinion, I'm also working on a video where I'm asking people for their opinions, basic random people on the streets, interviews with people asking them if in the first place they know what street photography is, and if they don't, I briefly explain it and ask for their opinion and their feelings about us photographers taking images of them oftentimes without their knowing and without their consent. And the results are interesting. I won't spoil it for you now. It's kind of a big project because I need the help of another fellow, and I usually do this by myself. I film myself, and this is not something I can do in that case. So I need somebody else to come with me and film me while I ask the questions. I only have about a handful of interviews. I certainly need more. Then I have to edit the thing and add subtitles because this is in Romanian, and I have to translate it for my international audience. But it's just, I think it's a worthwhile effort because while you guys are subscribed to hear my opinions, I think it's well worth showing opinions different to mine and showing what the basic random person on the street thinks about street photography. Also, please join the Discord server, link is in the description. This has been it. I have been Radu, this has been 1,000 Words, and remember that while street photography is creepy, it's alright that it is. Keep doing it. Until next time, be well.